Hello, everyone, and welcome to our guests. I'm new at Rashi. My name is Neil. I'm the new Director of Development. This is the first time I'm ever speaking at an assembly in this auditorium. Most of you don't know me, and under other circumstances, I probably would introduce myself and tell you a little bit about who I am. But I'm going to tell you just one aspect today of who I am because I don't want to take too much time from the program, and that is that I'm a very, very lucky person. And why am I lucky? Because I had the blessing to work for 9 years to commemorate the memory of one of my heroes growing up. I lived in Israel for most of my adult life, and for my generation, Yitzhak Rabin was the essence of a leader. In preparing for today, I know a lot of you studied about his peacemaking, and much of his legacy today focuses on the fact that he tried to build a better future and make peace for Israel. But essentially, he was much, much more than that. He was a hero in the Independence War. He was a hero during the Six-Day War. He was a man of integrity. And for me, it was an honor to work at the Yitzhak Rabin Center and to work to commemorate and promote his legacy. But what you might not know is that behind every important person and every leader, there is a partner who is providing support and the foundation and the infrastructure. And that was Dalia Rabin, Dalia's mother. And she was no less a hero of mine or many Israelis than Yitzhak was. She was a person of values. She was the person who advocated for the values that our school so much stands for. And she was a smart, strong, intellectual woman. And when we commemorate Yitzhak Rabin's assassination each year in Israel, we do it together with Dalia's mother's passing. But the third aspect of my being lucky is that I, as I mentioned, worked for almost 9 years at the Yitzhak Rabin Center, which is, many of you have visited already, or those of you who will visit, and I worked hand in hand with Dalia, who was an accomplished labor attorney, was a member of Knesset, was deputy minister of defense, and decided to put that all aside in order to promote the values that are basically parallel to our own core values here at Rashi, whether it's ruach and kavod, kihila, tzedek, limud. Those are also the values of the Rabin Center, and we have here a very natural partnership. For me, Dalia was like an older sister and like a mentor, and I'm very, very excited and even emotional to introduce her today. And sitting with her, I think you all know, is Glenda, and Glenda's going to take, Mark is going to take it over first. Thank you.
I wrote an acrostic poem, so here it is. Why? Years of service in the IDF were 1941 to 1967. I, Israel's Prime Minister from 1992 to 1995. T, teenager when he joined the Palmach Commando Force. Z, Zionist movement member. H, his daughter Dalia came to Rashi in 2016. This was meant for the center. A, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1994. K, Knesset member in the 1970s. R, raised in Tel Aviv. A, assassinated in 1995. B, born in Jerusalem. I, in 1997, the Yitzhak Rabin Center for Peace was founded in Tel Aviv. And N, native-born Prime Minister.
So Dalia, welcome. I know that we are so happy to have you here at Rashi, and we've had a little taste already where student government, student leadership met with you, and it's been a treat already, and now for the whole group to hear from you. So the first question I'm going to ask you, and I know some of these have been asked by student leadership, but I know everybody will want to hear. What was it like growing up as the daughter of Yitzhak and Dalia Rabin?
Do you hear me? Yes, you do. I grew up in a very, just simple family. We were not considered to be different because the whole neighborhood was very homogenized. Most of the people that lived in that neighborhood the fathers were army generals, and we were part of something bigger than our private lives. And when our fathers were not there, We knew that they are serving the country, and this is our contribution to the building of Israel. And I had a very, very sheltered and loving parents. I was always sick, so they were always very concerned about me. And the one who always took me to the doctor and slept with me when I was sick was my father. He was a very, very, very concerned father, on verge of being hysterical. For instance, he used to call the doctor 4 o'clock in the morning. So my mother used to tell him, don't wake up the doctor at that time. He says, whenever I'm needed, they call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, so let the doctor wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I grew up as a very loved child. And when I was 14, my father became the chief of staff of the Israeli Defense Forces. And this was the first time that it was a big excitement, because becoming chief of staff was really great. And my father earned it in not a very easy way. He used to say that nothing comes to him easy. It was because of different political reasons, it took him quite a while to become in the Israel Defense Forces. And as he always was very focused on what he was willing to do. He had a vision. So being chief of staff was a celebration for him, because he was the head of the hierarchy and he could implement all his vision about the army. And part of it was, which is relevant to the United States, was making trying to buy all the ammunition in the United States instead of France, and making the ties with the American military. He used to visit a lot of American military camps and was in very good relationship with the American army. So this is it. Then I was a grown-up, and I had my own life when he became prime minister first time and second time. Of course, we were very much involved in whatever he was doing, and we were always there worrying about him and worrying about his success and worrying about what's going on in politics. But I could manage my life the way I chose. He never expected me to follow him or to do things that he wanted us to do, except for one thing. When I registered to university, I chose English literature and translation. My mother, they were in Washington, and my mother came for a vacation. He said, your father would have preferred you to study law. So I registered and I studied law.
It sounds like you listened to your parents. You took what they told you to do.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your dad getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to phone the doctor if you were not well, because he was so worried. What other memories can you share with us? I know when you spoke with student leadership, you spoke about the time you had together over weekends, over Shabbat. What other special memories can you share of growing up?
I'm very bad at telling anecdotes, because whenever I think about my parents, I have a big picture. But I can tell you about one special period in my life, and it was before the Six-Day War. Next year, we will celebrate the 50th anniversary to this war. My father was chief of staff, and the prime minister was not a military man. So actually my father was also like the minister of defense. Until a few days before the war, they nominated Dayan. But he was the one who prepared the army from all aspects to face this war. And now things started to deteriorate, and the political moves were not successful. We were trying to avoid this war. And there were a lot of hesitations whether to start, whether we were a small country, very lean, and surrounded with so many Arab states who were all against us, preparing, moving their forces to our border. And I remember the real fear for existence and the feeling of that all this burden is on my father's shoulder. And I was very, very much concerned about that. And then the rest is history. We know what happened, and the war was such a big victory. And I specifically remember the day they conquered Jerusalem. I was in my room listening to the little transistor that I had, and listening to what's happening. And my mother was home, and we didn't have ties with my father. He was there. We never saw him since the war started, and we never heard from him. And all of a sudden, I hear that they are entering the old city of Jerusalem on the radio. So I call my mother, Mom, come quick. They are conquering the old city of Jerusalem. They are next to the Wailing Wall. And that evening, he gave a press conference, and my mother went to see him. So this is something I remember very clear.
Well, that's a very powerful memory. It's a world history memory for us. You served in the Knesset. Could you tell us something about that work, the work that you did in the Knesset?
For you'll have to hear everything twice.
Well, it's a big group who weren't there with you.
I went into politics in 1999 after the assassination. I never thought I'll end up as a politician. I was a lawyer by profession, and I loved my profession. And we were always kept behind the scene by my father. But after the assassination, everything has changed, and we were exposed to a lot of need of the people to see the family, to listen to the family, to touch the family, and my mother couldn't do it just on her own. So we joined her. She was actually his other part. My mother was his other half. They were very much together, and he wanted her always, that I'm going back from your question and I'll return to it. He wanted her to stay home, to be a mother at home for us, because his mother was an active mother and was never home. But he always knew how to let her feel that she's part of what he's doing. So she was always there with him, part of what he was doing. And then when he was assassinated, first of all, she was totally broken, and we had to come forward and support her. And then in 1999, there was an initiative to form a central party. And I, that never wanted to go into politics, decided to go to this new initiative, which was formed of 3 major leaders of the right with 3 major leaders of the left, and we thought that we'll bring left and right together, and it will be a central party, and it will be the greatest success. So at the end of the day, it wasn't such a success, but I became member of parliament, and I must admit that I was amazed by the power of one member of parliament, how much he could do. And I had 2 very, very interesting and hardworking years at the Knesset. After 2 years, the Central Party fell apart, and I took my mandate, and there was some kind of a situation that I could take my mandate and join Labour Party, and became Deputy Minister of Defense of the Labour Party. And this was, of course, the peak of my career, because it was very interesting. I was in the midst of the Israeli chauvinism, male chauvinism, because all those generals in uniform are very chauvinist. And I was the beginning, and and my father's daughter. So I was always sitting there quietly, not to say anything mistaken, but it was very, very intriguing and interesting, and I was it was a very hectic time. It was the second Intifada, and there were a lot going. Ariel Sharon was the prime minister. We were in a unity government. So I was in all the meetings of the cabinet and the kitchenette, what we used to call. So I was there all the time, and I was involved in everything that was happening, and it was very interesting.
Thank you. So I know that our time is going to be running short for you and me to speak. So I think that the most pivotal question, of course, is your involvement with the Rabin Center and why you chose to do this and why it is became such an important mission for you.
First of all, I would like to say that the initiative to establish the Rabin Center was not the families. Actually, none of the commemoration, the streets, the schools, the parks, whatever, it always came from the people. And also the Rabin Center, which is like a presidential library and was established by a state law in 1997. It was the initiative of former mayor of Tel Aviv, who was in charge of the rally in 1995 and felt very bad that this successful rally for peace, that was really above all expectations, was such a nice evening, and my father was so happy. And the end was so tragic, so he felt bad, and he came with the initiative of building a big and very significant and powerful building. He chose the site because he knew about what is available in Tel Aviv. It's a beautiful site on a bluff overlooking the whole of Tel Aviv and the whole green area of Tel Aviv. And we started. And we went through a lot of bureaucracy. And then we were stuck. We had the construction and the beginning and the skeleton and no money in the cashier. So I was called up to the flag, and they said, if you don't come, and my mother died in 2000. And she started the fundraising, but with Neil, and but she was facing difficulties fundraising for this cause. She used to fundraise for anything else in Israel, going through the wall for the autistic children, for the museums, for the hospitals. But for this specific cause, it was too sensitive and too painful. And so she said, Dalia, do me a favor, you do it, take it. And it was actually, the whole Rabin Center was her dream that I am here to fulfill. So in 2002, I decided that I will contribute much more to my father's memory than in politics. And I left politics altogether. I resigned from the government and I never ran again to Knesset. And I took over the Rabin Center, and I started wandering around in the United States with Neil from door to door. We really spent a lot of time together, in difficult time it was, but we raised the money and we built the Rabin Center. And then the agenda was also gradually was changing, and now it's a museum and educational center. What we want to do, aside of preserving the legacy, we would like to force the Israeli society to cope with the outcome of this assassination. Right. This was one of the most traumatic events to the Israeli democracy, because the guy who gunned down my father actually shot our democracy in the back. And he did not accept the democratic rules that a democratically elected prime minister shouldn't be killed in order to change the course of events. So we stand as a symbol to what is happening when somebody does not obey the democratic rules. And this is, I think, our unique power when we come to teach and convince the youngsters that always choose dialogue, always choose peaceful ways to solve conflicts, always listen to your body, be open-minded, respect the other, be careful about words because words can kill, and this is the way we'll create a better society.
That is magnificent. And before we close, I just have to personally say that looking at you, I know I've spoken to people who say you look like your mother. I see your father. I'm sure you embody both. But not only do you embody both, in everything you speak, it sounds like your life's work is to honor your father's name and show respect for your mother's work and for who she is. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to take some time, about 9 minutes, to hear questions. And of course, I'm going to give preferential treatment to students, but adults, I see you out there. If you have questions for Dalia as well, I encourage you to put up a hand. So she asked, how did you find out that your father was assassinated?
I did not go to that rally because I had an operation a day before and my father didn't want me to go, so I was home. And the kids went and my husband went, and they called me after the rally from their cars and said how lovely it was. And then when they were still on the way, my mother calls and she said, "Did you hear what happened?" I said, "No, Mom." She said, "They shot your father, but they say it's not for real." I said, "Where are you?" She said, "I'm at the headquarters of the security organization." I said, "And what are you doing there? And where is Daddy?" She said, "I don't know." She said, "I'm hanging up and I'm going to find out." And then we all jumped into the car and went to the headquarters of the organization. By the time we came there, she was already taken to the hospital. So we all went to the hospital and we sat in a small room in the hospital. We understood that the situation was crucial, that there are very, very little chances that he will survive. And then I think around 11:30 or something like that, the head of the hospital came and said, we saw his face and we could understand that this is the end.
Ali. So before you were in the Knesset and before you trained as a lawyer, what did you want to be when you were older?
A doctor. Like a very, very typical Jewish girl. I wanted to become a doctor. I was always sick, as I said before. I had all kinds of things. And I was very interested in what's happening and how to cure. So actually, I'm also half a doctor. Whenever my friends have a problem with medicine, they come to me because they know that I will give them good advice. So I wanted to become a doctor, but at the end of the day, I became a lawyer.
I'd say that nowadays you're a healer. Yes.
I don't see myself giving you advice because I don't think the situation in our country is that great. I can tell you that from my experience, the incitement that was before my father's assassination was tremendous. And the use of words that were used then, and I don't want to repeat it now, gave somebody the feeling that he can shoot the prime minister in the back because he's a traitor, because so on and so forth. Since the assassination, there's a lot of talk about the power of words, and there is a change in the terminology within the political area. I don't think that today politicians are using the same. Though here and there you see pictures of the president put in a Nazi costume, like my father was. But if you talk about the general terminology, I think people are more prudent. But we still preach for keeping the line between freedom of speech and incitement. And this is one of the agendas of the Rabin Center. This is something that we are dealing with. Unfortunately, we couldn't show you the PowerPoint, which we have a lot of posters, because this year the theme was words can kill. Please take responsibility on what you say. So we have beautiful posters that are hanging all over the center that youngsters did to that theme. There was a contest. So to give you advice how to deal with it, I think it's in the hands of the leadership. And it's dictated by the way the leadership talks. And it comes from the head. So I'm not going to go into politics.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. One more. Okay, I see, let's see, I'm just seeing how many. Is that a hand up over there behind Ms. Brown? Go ahead. Sorry, middle schoolers, but these younger students haven't had a chance.
But what?
Have you seen or met other presidents or foreign ambassadors from countries?
What?
Have you seen or met other heads of state?
Of course, I did. I met a lot of them especially during the second tenure of my father as prime minister. And then after the assassination, we were hosted by many heads of states that wanted to respect my mother, and we joined her. Right after the assassination, there was a big rally in Madison Square Garden, and we were taken straight from there to the White House, and we spent the night at the White House when Clinton was president. So I had the chance to meet a lot of ambassadors and heads of states.
What do you think, Rabbi? One more. Okay. Yep. Yes, sir. Have you felt any personal threat to your life?
No.
That's a good answer. You don't travel with a security group, do you?
Even when I was Deputy Minister of Defense, I refused to have bodyguards. And kids of prime ministers never had bodyguards except for the present ones.
So thank you for your terrific questions. I just want to guide you as we're getting ready for the final stage of this assembly to really take Dalia's words to heart. I'd like to believe that though she said that when her father was assassinated, democracy was assassinated, that in fact democracy can be reborn and is being reborn.
Was not assassinated, was hit in the back.
Was shot
in the back.
Got it. And I see the difference.
Right, there is a difference.
So democracy then, what she's really saying is if we're not always careful about what's going on out there, then our democracy can get hurt. So we always have to be aware, vigilant, paying such close attention, because the words that we say and the actions that we take can be heard and be followed. So our good words are heard well, and our unkind words are also heard and can be followed in a bad direction. So keep these things in mind as I turn the mic back over to Rabbi Smith.
I feel like I'm holding gold, and Rabbi Smith will hold these up. We're going to present you with a very special gift. And before I tell you what the gift is, I want to just reflect on a very, very short quote that your father said when he was addressing the United States Congress in 1994. Dalia, he said, "What will I leave to my grandchildren? I don't have any assets. I have only dreams to build a better world, a world of understanding and harmony, a world in which it is a joy to live." This is not asking too much.
This is what I said in Temple, Israel, 2 days ago. This is the quote I chose.
Well, all right, that makes me
Great
very
minds
happy.
think alike.
Makes me very happy. So what the gift we want to give to you, and it's from so deep in our hearts, it's from kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh graders, and eighth graders. And the Hebrew staff worked with the entire school to create our own visions of peace, both in terms of pictures and in terms of poems and essays. And Dalia, we give you these books, and we join you, and we give such honor to your family and to everyone throughout the world who shares this quest, and I mean quest in the biggest way, for peace. And I hope that you are inspired by these beautiful poems and artwork, and that you bring it to the Rabin Center and you share it. And just know that these books coming with so much love.
Thank you so much. I'm inspired by you.
There's a few pieces of this poetry that we thought would be appropriate to share today. There were so many that would be inspiration and beauty, but only a few that we can choose. I'm hoping that Mabel and Abigail and Daniel could come forward to share their pieces.
As Israel's fate lies before this sacred moment, as the grandfather of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin, walks onto the stage with compassion and pride, having a dream like everyone else, a dream for peace, he speaks the words of fairness, loyalty, and pride. His last words are, "I hurt but not terribly." A soldier who died because he was a man of peace, Bob Dole quotes. After that was just sheddings of many tears and the cry of many Israelis. Yitzhak Rabin was a leader of Israel whose spirit and compassion lives on today throughout Israelis and many others. Thank you.
From Abigail and Liza.
Okay, so we wrote Rabin in English and Yitzchak in Hebrew, so we're gonna do Yitzchak first. So the I is for Israel, and the Yud, and the Tzaddik is for Tzaddik, and the Chet is for Chalom LeIsrael, and the Kuf is for Kehillah.
For Rabin, the R is respect for everyone, and the A is for always. The B is for believing in Israel's, I for integrity, and N for never-ending persistence.
To me, peace is everyone accepting everyone for who they are, not denying anyone or trying to convince them to be something they aren't. It is loving your neighbor as you love yourself.
And Dalia, from us as a Kehillah, We close today with great thanks for being here. It has meant so much to us, for us to learn from you. Rashi, we end as we sing together Shir LaShalom, that this should be a song of peace, that this should be a moment of peace.